The NCA is very proud to host today's launch. Most of you would be familiar with the NCA, or Northern Councils Alliance, which comprises the mayors and CEOs of 7 councils across the northern metropolitan Melbourne.
Today marks an important milestone in our journey towards a more efficient, sustainable and interconnected regional transport system, and we will unveil today our Community Electric Vehicle Transition Plan, which is a comprehensive strategy that will prepare communities and businesses across Melbourne's north for the transition to electric vehicles. Our 7 councils have made a commitment to work together. We've commissioned these reports and continue to work tirelessly in advocating for their recommendations. Better transport options will stimulate economic growth across our region, and at the end of the day, and this is why we do all that we do, it is to improve the quality of life of our residents.
Most of the great public transport initiatives in Australia for the last 15 years have been local government initiatives. If you want to be the coolest city and you want to get your economies kick-started and you do want to be remarkable, then you're going to have to make some change. Otherwise you can't improve, you can't change. You'll just go on your steady state, nice young families, put a roof over their head and give them a bus or a train to go to Melbourne to spend all their money. That is not us anymore. The people you have to convince of that, first of all, are the people who live there. Get the people who love it heaps to convince everyone else. Get the people who sort of getting a bit jaded with it, get them to fall in love with it again. Get all those people to fall in love with it and then people will follow them.
My takeouts, there's a lot that's actually in our control. There is the FOMO, so fear of missing out, and making sure that we're capturing that. Revitalising and building centres that aren't focused on cars and parking. Being kind, investing in those tactical projects. We know that's something we do. We do all pilots all the time to build that data and evidence to build our case, and so we've just had that reinforced that there's so much evidence around how that can work. And more than anything, it is a race and getting urgent, so I think we've taken away a lot out of that. So thank you again, Stephen.
Some people say electric vehicles are the future. They've existed, they exist. It's not the future, it's now. And I think the only impediment to us having massive rapid rollout is policy. And we've got to get those policies right.
Getting transport connectivity around a reservoir and particularly to major hubs is quite difficult. To get to one place to another via car would only take you 10 minutes, if that, let alone on transport. It would take you about two hours to get there, which is quite ridiculous, where we need to start looking at doing things in connectivity in a different way.
We are expected to have 180,000 people in our shire in the next 20 years. If we don't take a long-term view to strategic planning and investment in it, then we will be playing catch-up forever. And that is going to be to the detriment of the people that come and choose to live in our wonderful part of the world.
We don't need extra infrastructure to put buses into our transport network. It's something we can do fast. And I think there's a matter of urgency to look at that entire network from a regional perspective, as we've begun to lay out in our bus network strategy, and really ensure that that network is meeting the needs.
I really feel that as councils, we've got a key leadership role. One part of it is all about the advocacy that we can make to government. And that's on a couple of fronts. That's for funding to support the transition to electric vehicles, but also for statewide and local planning scheme amendments where required.
If we don't do something differently, where we have the opportunity to do so, then really we're going to condemn future generations to education poverty, lived experience poverty, worse healthcare outcomes, and we don't have to do that.
I sort of think about it from my own perspective, and I think, well, what was the point of putting my hand up, putting in all that effort and trying to get elected to council in the first place? And this isn't like the corporate sector, this is about doing things for the community, and the point is to help make things a little bit better. And so if you're backed in by evidence, majority of the time, we will take that evidence and that advice seriously, and we'll see how we can enact this.
So as you've heard, we've completed a significant amount of work over the past few years, particularly around this question around transport, connectivity and access. We've heard about the need for better engagement with state and federal governments, and we've spoken of the need for our large-scale transport infrastructure and the need for the planning to begin, and it's urgent and has to happen now. We know that electric vehicles are going to be the source, but we also know that that transition isn't going to solve the problems, but we know that we need to be building that in. So there is a lot for us to be taking on board as we think about the challenge that we're up to, but I certainly know my experience in this group and all of our NCA colleagues here, we know that as a region we're up to that task.